Now in this video, we're going to learn a different type of factoring. We're going to learn how to factor trinomials, specifically when a equals 1. And before we go over that, let's just go over how you actually multiply x plus 5 times x plus 3. We've done this in the past, but going over this will help us actually factoring. So when we multiply these out, we have x squared plus 3x plus 5x plus 15. And when you combine the middle two terms, we get x squared plus 8x plus 15. And this kind of pattern comes up, and you see that the last number in this trinomial is always these two numbers multiplied, and this number in the middle is always those two numbers added up. So that pattern is actually going to help us factor trinomials. It's actually going to help us go backwards. So what if I asked you to factor x squared plus 8x plus 15? What I'm doing is I'm asking you to pretty much undo what you just did. So I'm trying to find two binomials that when we distribute it, it gives us x squared plus 8x plus 15. So we're undistributing, kind of. So I know the first two have to multiply to x squared, so I'm always going to start with just an x and x. This is going to be for this entire section. Now, the puzzle here is we have to figure out what numbers go here. So these two numbers have to multiply to 15, and then they have to add to 8. And that's how it's always going to be with these trinomials. So you want to come up with all the different ways to multiply to 15, which is why we did that warm-up activity. We have 1 and 15, and then we have 3 and 5, and that's it. And then go through and add those together. How do we? 1 plus 15 would be 16. 3 plus 5 would be 8. So there's only one combination that adds up to the middle term, 8. So those are the two numbers that we put in, plus 3 and plus 5. And then that is your answer in factored form. So let's try another one where we don't actually already know the answer. We have x squared minus 7x plus 12. So same thing, we're going to start with our two sets of parentheses. We know this is going to be x and x, and we just need to fill in these two numbers. So it has to multiply to 12. So let's write out all the possible ways we can multiply to 12. And then it has to eventually add to negative 7. Now, the sign's very important. So there's a couple different ways you can multiply to a positive number. We could have a positive times a positive, or we could also have a negative times a negative. Those are two different ways we can multiply to a positive. So I could have 1 and 12, but I also could have negative 1 and negative 12. So I have to think of both of those scenarios. I could have 2 and 6, or I could have negative 2 and negative 6. I could have 3 and 4, or I could have negative 3 and negative 4. And we need to go through and add those all separately, and we can kind of do that in our head. Which one adds to negative 7? It would be minus 3 minus 4. And the good part of this section is you can always go back and check your answers. We have x squared minus 4x minus 3x plus 12, and then combine like terms, we get x squared minus 7x plus 12. Yes, so our answer works. So our final answer, I guess I should have not have circled that. Our final answer would be this factored form right here. So x minus 3, x minus 4. Now, the more of these you do, the quicker you get at them, and it's kind of like a puzzle. So I'm going to do the same thing here. I have x and x, and I'm trying to multiply to negative 14. To multiply to negative 14, I could have negative 1 and positive 14. Or the signs could be the opposite. I could have positive 1 and negative 14. So now that I'm multiplying to a negative number, I have a couple more options. I could have negative 2, positive 7, or I could have positive 2, negative 7. And I think that's it, right? So then I'm going to add those all up. Which one adds to negative 5? Because in the middle term is negative 5. It would be 2, negative 7. This is where you have to be careful about your signs, because if you picked negative 2, positive 7, it'd be close, but that gives you a positive 5. So you have to make sure your signs are correct. So it would be positive 2, negative 7. And then that's it. So in the activity for this week, you're going to see kind of like a chart set up. This is just going to help you kind of organize how you go through this process. So let me show you how to walk through one of these with this table. So I'm first going to start in this first column. I'm looking for factors of negative 18. So I'm just going to put all the different ways to multiply to negative 18. I could have 1 and negative 18. That's actually weirdly the one that people forget the most. They forget that you can do whatever the number is times 1. Or I could have -1, positive 18. I could have 2, -9, or the opposite, -2, positive 9. I could have 3, -6, or I could have -3, positive 6. And it's actually really important that you kind of try your best to go in order, because if you don't go in order, see how I went 1, 2, 3, the next thing I would check is 5, and then 6, but obviously then the next thing I would check is 4, and then 5, and then I'd get back to 6, and then I'd be done. If you don't go in order, you might miss one. So I have all the factors of -18. Now I'm going to kind of add all of them in my head, or you can actually write out all the sums if you want. And I'm trying to find what factors from this column give me a combination of +3. It would be -3 and positive 6. So then I have to write that in factored form. It would be x minus 3, x plus 6. So that's how you're going to fill out this chart. If you can't print it out, then just kind of make the chart the best you can on paper. It just helps you organize your steps.